This Almond Spritz cookie gets its rich taste from the ground toasted almonds that are incorporated in the dough. The fancy look comes from the pastry bag and decorating tip that we'll use to make it. The total preparation and baking time is about an hour and 15 minutes, and this recipe yields just about 4 dozen cookies. To make almond cookies, we start by toasting the almonds. We're going to toast our almonds in a 375-degree oven for 4 to 5 minutes. And these are blanched, sliced almonds. Now these have been in the oven for 2 minutes, and as you can see, they haven't even started to toast. These were 4 minutes, and they have barely started to turn. These were about 5.5 minutes, and they're just right. They've got a nice light brown to them. There's just a few dark spots. Those are perfect. These were in for 7 minutes, and as you can see, they're nice and dark. They've even started to burn here. So we don't want these. These are too done. So you're going to have to judge your oven and see what you get. But what you're looking for is something that's just started to turn, and you've got a nice pale brown. We start with a 1/2 cup of sliced blanched almonds, which you can find in the grocery store. Preferably you'll find some that don't have the peel on them. We're going to toast those in a 375-degree oven for 4 to 5 minutes. And it's about 5 minutes later, and you can see that all of our almonds are toasted nice and evenly. We've got a few that are just starting to turn dark, but overall we've got a nice light brown. We're going to let those cool off before we chop them. The almonds have cooled, and now it's time to chop them up. We're going to put them in our chopper, and we're going to use it to get them as fine as we can chop them, just short of turning them into a paste. They're going to go into a pastry bag. We're going to be pushing the dough through a tip, so we want the particles as fine as we can get them so that they don't clog our tip up. And that's about 2 or 3 minutes. So let's put them on a dish and take a look. And here are the results. We have a nice fine grind, not quite a paste. We're not making marzipan. And that should process into the dough and go through the decorating tip just fine. We've assembled our ingredients, and now it's time to make the dough. We start with a cup or 2 sticks of unsalted margarine, and to that we add 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, and we're going to cream those together. And that's a minute or so, and those are blended together nice. So we scrape the bowl. Next, we're going to add 1 egg and a teaspoon each of almond extract and vanilla extract. And blend that well. Now we're going to scrape the bowl. Now we add 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, and then we're slowly going to blend in 2 cups of flour. And lastly, we're going to add the almonds. And we're ready to go. That gives us a nice, soft, creamy dough, and you can't not see the nut particles in there. And that's what you want. That means it's going to flow out of the tip on the pastry bag just right. This is an 8B large decorating tip. It has 17 prongs on it. We're going to insert it into the bag, load the bag with dough, and make some cookies. We start by inserting the tip down into the bag, and we squeeze it through so that all the prongs are clear. Next, we take about 1/3 of our dough, push it down as far as we can, and then squeeze it down the rest of the way. Give the bag a little twist and we're ready to squeeze out cookies. Now, the temptation will be to put all the dough in the bag. The problem with doing that is, if you've filled up the bag with this much dough, you will have to apply enough force with each squeeze to move that much dough, just to get one out of the end. So by only using about 1/3 of the dough, it makes it easier to squeeze the cookies out onto the sheet, and it's just an easier process. You do have to stop and refill the bag, but that's much easier and less time consuming than struggling with a full bag. So we're going to squeeze the air out. And now we're ready to make some cookies. This is a room temperature ungreased baking sheet. And this dough is very soft, and they just squeeze out of that pastry bag So easy you won't believe it. These rosettes are about an inch or an inch and a quarter, and these cookies do grow when you bake them. So you got to leave an inch or more between them. And the other thing you'll notice is that I'm getting all 17 serrations nice and clean on every squeeze, which means that those nuts were ground up fine enough that they're not clogging the prongs in the tips. And that's all there is to these. Then we garnish them with our little cherry wedge that we cut at the beginning. And then they'll be ready to bake. So I'm going to finish filling this sheet, and then we'll pop them in the oven. We filled our cookie sheet, and these are ready to go into the oven. These bake in a 375 degree preheated oven for 9 to 12 minutes. What you're looking for on this cookie is a cookie that is just beginning to turn brown around the outside edges, and on the bottom it's just turned a light brown around the outside edges. You can see the inner part of the cookie is still very light, it's just begun to turn. That cookie is done perfectly. When you take them off the cookie sheet with your spatula and put them on the wire rack to cool, they're going to feel a little bit soft, almost like they're not quite done. And that's perfect, because as they cool that last minute or two, they'll continue to bake and you'll get a delicious cookie. And these have just come out of the oven. As you can see, they're a little soft yet, but as we put those on the wire rack to cool, they'll finish baking right on the wire rack, and they'll be perfect when they're cool. And there we've got a full batch of Almond Spritz cookies ready to eat.